Dear friends, dear co-workers, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Capricorn Solar Festival webinar. Today our guest is David Spangler, and I heartily welcome David for joining us today. Today is the first day of distribution for the Capricorn Solar Festival. And in this tide of high spiritual energy, we come together to reflect, meditate, and share together on how we find in our position of responsibility in the work to be done to manifest the plan. How we work in cooperation with the hierarchy through taking responsibility and learning to function as if. As always, at the beginning of our webinar, let us have alignment, coming together as a group, not just as an audience. So let's center within, connecting with the light within each of us, own light. And we connect with lights of each other. There are 79, at least 79 of us now on this call, on this webinar. And we can just run with our eyes through the list on the control panel of the names. Some of us, we know each other. Some we recognize names. And some we don't know, but we can use the power of our imagination, seeing us linking together with love in our hearts and light in our minds. Coming together in a circle. And we project the love from our hearts towards the group heart center, seeing the flame of group heart expanding. And we invoke the energy of Capricorn to lift us up to the mountaintop, aligning with the heart center of our planet, spiritual hierarchy. And we turn our eyes towards humanity, recognizing the need as we together, as one human family, going through the great process of transformation. And we hold our focus in the kingdom of souls and the human world. And bring our focus to the heart center of the group. And we start our work. Thank you. Welcome again, and thank you for joining us. And dear David, thank you for being with us again this year in this very interesting, transformative time. Thank you for sharing your vision and your wisdom. And the microphone is yours.
Thank you, Alexander. And it is indeed a pleasure to be with you and to celebrate really this transition from one year to another. So I find this being a Capricorn myself, I find this a wonderful way to end this year and to begin 2021. So thank you for having me as part of your program. So the theme, as I understand it, is that of the externalization of the hierarchy, and in particular, the externalization of the hierarchy of responsibilities, which I feel is a wonderful way of wording this because it puts the emphasis back upon ourselves and upon what we can do and upon our unique individual contributions to this whole process. So I want to say right off the bat that I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are much more knowledgeable students of the ageless wisdom as presented by DK and Alice Bailey than I am. So I come to this not out of that particular tradition, but out of my own experiences and insights developed over the years. And so I share those with these with you with all humility and with recognition that I'm speaking from outside the tradition that you folks are working with. But I have a deep love and respect for all that DK and Alice Bailey accomplished, and for all of those who have worked with world goodwill and with the ageless wisdom have been accomplishing in the many years since Alice's departure. So when I think of the externalization, there's no doubt in my mind that we are in fact experiencing a profound transformation taking place in our world, that forces long held in abeyance are now being released, both for transformation, for challenge, for the meeting up with karmic responsibilities, and for blessing, and for the fostering and nourishing of new worlds that are seeking to emerge. Indeed, all of my work for the over nearly 60 years now that I've been doing this work has been focused on this idea that we are in a time of transition and transformation and emergence. But it's one that, for me, is very centered in ourselves as individuals and in exploring what we can uniquely bring to the table, what we each uniquely have to offer to this emergence and to the unfoldment of new possibilities, as well as to providing stability and calm and healing, and where necessary, rescue during times when humanity is confronting its karmic responsibilities. So it's a mixed bag that we are encountering, one that has both darkness and light, both travail and vision and success. And within this context, I see the externalization as something like a wave front. It's think of a wave heading towards shore, and as it does so, it expands outward from its original point of origin. And so from the heart of sacredness, we have this wave front emerging and moving through our world. And I think of the externalization not as the appearance of specific individuals per se, but as the manifestation of this wave front of loving and vivifying energy. And because it's a wave front, it's not isolated or focused around particles, around specific particular individuals, but it's something that we all participate in. Wherever the wave strikes, we become part of it. If we were all bathers in the sea and the wave is coming in to shore, we would all feel that wave as it strikes our bodies and moves through us and moves on. Except in this case, we're not just passive experiencers of this, but rather we are participants. For in important ways, we are ourselves part of the wave. To understand this, we really need to ask what it is that's externalizing. Is it simply a group of individuals, whatever we may call them, the masters, the inner adepts, the saints, the brotherhood of light, the sisterhood of light? Or is it something much deeper and more universal? I feel that what is externalizing is a wave of sacredness, what is externalizing is the capacity of the sacred to manifest more fully, more dynamically, and more intimately within the physical realm and within the subtle realms closest to the physical, to the realms of thought and emotion. But each of us contains that sacredness within us. We are each part of it intrinsically, whether there was an externalization or not. We still are, each of us, at our core, embodiments of this sacredness, of the light from which all things emerge. And so when we think of this wave moving in, that wave, as it strikes us, it becomes us, because we are already the water of which it is composed. And it becomes our joy and our responsibility and our opportunity to participate in extending and expanding this wavefront as it moves through the world. So each of us is a source of this wave. Each of us has our own individual wavefront within us, our own expansion and expression of sacredness that is within us. And in this sense, the externalization comes as a vivification and an empowerment of the many, many, many wavefronts of sacredness that are within the lives of men and women throughout the world, particularly those who place themselves through their attunement and through their love and through their dedication to humanity into the ocean of light through which this wave is moving. So with this in mind, there's two particular aspects of this process that I would like to bring our attention to. The title of the talk said the hierarchy of responsibility, which, as I said at the beginning, shifts the attention away from images of a small group of people making themselves known to the world, to a dynamic process that is occurring within each of us in response to this accelerating and emerging wavefront of sacredness. So each of us has the capacity to stand in our sacredness, to acknowledge that this is who we are. And because this is who we are, we stand in relationship to the world as a source of light, as a source of love, as a source of blessing. In the particular teaching that I work with, called incarnational spirituality, this standing in sacredness is what I call sovereignty. It's our sovereignty, our ability to make choices and to determine our own actions based on our attunement to our unique soul force, our unique capacity as a being of light. Now, granted, this capacity is held within physical form. It's held within our psychology. It's subject to all the challenges and the impediments that can arise from the incarnate state. But that light is still there. We still can stand in the sovereignty of our sacredness. And so when we think about the externalization, there's certainly a tendency to want to see this as something happening extrinsic to ourselves. It's happening out there in the world. It's happening through the actions of others, particularly very highly evolved others. And we may overlook the fact that what they are doing in unleashing, or I should say, in helping to propagate this wave of sacredness into the world, is no different than what we can do. The difference lies in scale. You know, the difference lies in the planetary nature of our connectedness, or of their connectedness, as compared to our particular level of connectedness. But nevertheless, where we stand and who we are, though it may be at a much more reduced scale, the process is the same. The process emerges from our capacity to acknowledge our link, our oneness with the universal life, with the sacred. And therefore, to acknowledge that we can be a source of the love and the light, the blessing that is part of this wave of externalization, and which can then take form, whatever forms it finds appropriate within the incarnate world. But we're not really talking here about new forms of government or new religion or new forms of economics, even though we know and anticipate that this wave of sacredness moving into and through the world will bring new forms of these human institutions about. But these new forms are themselves rooted in a capacity to bring a presence of love and light and blessing and joy into the world. And for that, we need to be able to stand in our sovereign self, just as those whom we call the masters stand in their own sovereign sacredness. Now, the term sovereign and sovereignty may suggest a form of individuality that has dominance over others. We know a king is sovereign and a king rules. And my choice of the word sovereignty to describe this link with the sacred is that it gives us the ability to be self-governing, to be in charge of what happens within our own psychology, within our own body, within our own incarnate life. It's our personal sovereignty over our incarnation. And hence our ability to bring the deep sacredness that's at our core into expression within our incarnate life. That is something that is within our capability and thus within our area of responsibility. And these are big words, you know, sacredness and love and joy and blessing and light. And they can carry a lot of glamour and weight with them. But if we think about it, what we're really looking at is how these qualities manifest within whatever scale of operation is there for us to work within. So in my life, where can I express my love and my blessing? Well, I can do it with the things immediately around me. I can be the wave front of sacredness as it moves to just the things that are there in my life, the work that I do, the tools that I use to do it with, the people that I interact with. It doesn't matter how expansive or circumscribed these circumstances may be for my life. my personal wavefront of sacredness emerging from my sovereignty of standing in my sacredness can move freely out as a blessing to my world, however expansive or circumscribed it may seem to be for me. So that's one side. The other side is its complement, and that is the ability to be a partner to the world, a partner to life. Because really that's what creates the wavefront, that's what extends it. It's my ability to connect with and link with others, to link with the life that's around me in the subtle dimensions, to link with the world soul, to link with the soul of humanity, to see myself as part of a living commons, see myself as part of a community of life that embraces both physical and non-physical reality. And the masters of the hierarchy are part of that common. They are part of that same community, part of that same great extended wave. The scale at which they work is different from mine, but their capacity to connect, to form partnership and alliance with the life around me, with people around me, with the living spirit within things around me, with the nature around me, all of that is the same process. So within the immediate context of my life, I am the presence of the hierarchy, if I wish to see it that way. I am the master. Who else is the immediate source of influence and impact and engagement with the things of my life, with the spiritual elements, with the people, with the subtle forces that make up my surroundings, my environment, my everyday world. It's in this area, as I extend out from my own self-interest and see myself as part of this community of life and beingness that makes up my world, that I begin to extend the wavefront of the externalization. I may not develop some new theory of government or be the instigator of a new spiritual movement or develop a new kind of economics. And I don't need to. I need to determine and express how the love and the blessing and the joy behind those things, which eventually can be institutionalized in those outer manifestations, can take effect in the relationships I form in my own life. How do I engage with others? How do I treat them? How do I help them? How do I partner with them and partner with all the life around me, not just that which has a physical manifestation? Many years ago, when I had the privilege of going to the Findhorn Foundation community, which in those days was simply the Findhorn community that was in 1970, the community was very small, and I discovered that it was rooted in the idea of an emerging new age. And the community saw itself, all the 15 people who were living there at the time, as preparing for a new age to come. And I said to Peter Caddy, who was one of the three founders, you know, what we need to do is to play a game of what if. And in this what if, we're going to assume that the new age has already come. Whatever event or whatever process, whatever we might imagine was going to inaugurate the new age, it's now already happened. The new age is here. Now what? Now that the new age is here, what do we do? How do we live our lives? Because in many ways, we still have to do the same things in the new age as we were doing in the quote old age. We still have to eat. We still have to do our work. We still are in relationship. We still raise families. So what is preventing us from bringing the spirit of a new way of being into these things that we're already doing? There's no reason to wait. We can say, the new age is here now, and I am part of it. This will be our game of what if. Let's see what that does in the community. And as it turned out, it transformed the community. But we're being asked to do something very similar. You know, there have been various dates given around the idea of the externalization of the hierarchy. 2025 is often mooted as the point at which it begins. But no one knows for absolutely sure or knows exactly the form it will take. But we can still play the game of what if. We can say, I'm part of the wavefront of the externalization. It's already here, and it's happening through me, and it's happening through my partners, and through those with whom I can form community and with whom I can engage. And what will my life be like? Who am I in the age of the externalization? What responsibilities do I carry? What capacities do I hold? And I realize, if I think about this deeply, that I already have those capacities. It's not that I have to wait for the externalization to be loving. I don't have to wait for the externalization to bring light into the world. I don't have to wait for the externalization to be a source of blessing to those around me, to be kind, to be charitable, to be generous, to be joyous. I don't have to wait for the externalization to seek new ways of relating to my world. I can do that now. I have the imagination, I have the will, I have the love, I have the capacities to do that now in a way that is accessible and appropriate to me, whatever my particular life circumstance may be. And when I say I'm going to play this game, what if the externalization has already happened and I'm part of it? Now what? When I do that, then I truly begin to unleash the presence of this wavefront. Obviously, many things are going to unfold over the next few years, just as they have in this past year. There will be more challenges to come, I'm sure, and some may be even greater than what we faced in 2020. There will be new advances to come, and there will be new accomplishments, and there will be new blessings. But none of that prohibits us or precludes us from being the presence of the wavefront of externalization, the wavefront of sacredness right now in our lives. That's a game of what if that we can play. DK writes about the importance of aspiration, of the hearts of humanity being open to and invoking the reappearance of the Christ. And aspiration is indeed a very powerful thing. But right now, we also need to aspire to what is already within us, to the fullest, the highest, the noblest, the most joyous of which we are capable. And we may surprise ourselves. it's not like we have to reach some arbitrary standard. We reach the level that we can reach. But the point is that we are aspiring to unfold and stretching to unfold our ability to manifest as part of the wavefront of externalization, to be ourselves a manifestation of that externalization. This, I feel, is very important, because if all we do is wait and expect and hope that one day a group of highly evolved humans will appear on the planet and tell us what to do, we may be waiting for a long time, because we may not recognize that externalization when it actually happens. We may not have developed the inner tools to recognize the hand of partnership that reaches out to us, that says, we know you're capable, join us. We may be looking instead for the hand that lifts us up, because we are seeing ourselves as too helpless to do this for ourselves. The externalization is an expression of the muscles of the earth learning to bear the weight of sacred life and to carry that weight upwards into new formation, into new accomplishment, into new energy and new ways of being. And we're part of that muscle. Well, I think that's all that I wanted to say about this morning. And if I go much further, I will start progressing into the territories of my ignorance. So, so I'm going to stop there, and we can have some time for questions. I have to say that my hearing is not always the best in these circumstances, so I may ask you to repeat if I don't understand what you've asked me. But then we'll conclude with a short meditation. But thank you very much for this opportunity, as I said, to share these thoughts with you at this time. Alexander, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, David. And we invite us to step into, how did you say, David, territory of our collective ignorance to and explore together. And if anyone would like to share anything or ask anything, please raise your hand, and let's go with this wave. And also you can use the questions section of your control on the control panel and write your questions and comments, and I will repost them. Unfortunately, GoToWebinar doesn't support the function of chat for all participants. We will work around that. There is a hand being raised for a while, so I'm not sure if it's by mistake or not. Deborah, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand again. I just lowered your hand, and there was someone else who just raised their hand. So, and Natalie, I will unmute you. Please unmute yourself.
So,
yes, we can hear you.
Thank you for your talk. I like the idea that I am a muscle of all this life. Can you elaborate a little bit on that, please? Your idea?
Yes, I can. So I was thinking of a physical analogy here, and the physical analogy is that when we think of what the externalization is seeking to achieve in terms of a transformation of human not just human consciousness, but human behavior in relationship to the world and to each other. I think of that as needing to lift a great weight. It's like trying to lift a great weight, because there's a lot of inertia, there's a lot of habit and patterns from the past that are being lifted up into the light, being lifted up into a condition in which they can be met and transmuted and the weight lifted. So it's much easier if a whole group of people join together to lift that weight than if one or two people try to do it. So if I think of what the externalization is attempting to accomplish on behalf of humanity as a whole, but also on behalf of the world as a whole, for which humanity is itself a point of leverage into greater states of being, then all of us are part of the muscle by which we're lifting this weight and bringing it to a place where it can be transmuted and transformed. So that was what was going through my mind when I used that. So, but let me put that into a different context. It's been part of my experience that when I'm able to express in a mindful and deliberate way where there's intention behind it, when I'm able to express love or joy or blessing out into my particular world, that is my environment, the world in which my body is located and in which I function every day. When I can do that, I recognize that that connects me with others who are doing the same thing, and not just human others, but non-human others, beings in the Davic and nature worlds that are in effect doing the same thing. And in the Davic worlds, in the kingdoms of nature, they're doing it all the time. That's how life in our world is maintained. In the human world, we do it sporadically. But as we grow in our own inner attunement and our own alignment with our soul capacities and with the love that's within us, then we begin doing it more and more and more regularly and often, and it ceases to be sporadic, and we become part of this great rhythm of life that is empowering and vivifying and energizing and blessing all the aspects of the world. And so there's a sense of participating in what I call the commons, in a community of shared endeavor. And this community is made up of all kinds of beings, some hugely powerful, planetary in the scope of their activity, and some that are extremely tiny and whose scope of working and activity is very narrow. So it might be the life that is holding the sacred impulse within my coffee cup, for example, or within my glass of water, or within anything really that is part of the material world and therefore part of the spirit of matter. So this idea of being a muscle in a much larger body is just a physical analogy of the way in which each of us is part of a body of Gaian energy, of Gaian life, in which we are uplifting and holding the unfoldment of that life at all times. Humanity doesn't always fulfill its role in that. We're not carrying our weight yet, but we can. And for me, the externalization means our movement to a place where we take up that particular responsibility and that particular burden, which, as the great master said, is a burden that is light. So that's what was in my mind as I used that analogy. Thank you for your question.
There's another raised hand. Michael, please unmute yourself.
Thank you, David. I really appreciate the image of a wave of the sacred seeking to manifest on earth through the portal of our daily lives. It resonates with me. In fact, I've talked about the externalization of the hierarchy begins with the internalization of the soul qualities within ourselves so that we become that field. I have a question, and it has to do with the Christ, because when we talk about the externalization of the hierarchy within the esoteric community, we always add, and the reappearance of the Christ. And I wanted to get a sense of the conversations you've had with your own deeper self, and also the conversations you've had with those many lives that constitute the subtle ecosystem of Gaia. What is their relationship to the Christ, both as a cosmic presence and principle, as a planetary embodiment, and in particular, as represented by the Christ who we know as the elder brother of our human family? Because we always talk about the externalization and the reappearance within this community. So I would appreciate if you could shed some light on how others within Gaia are holding Christ.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Michael. And first, let me say that I love your comment about the internalization of the sacred. That's really what that's really part of what I mean when I talk about sovereignty. That is, in fact, our capacity to internalize that sense of connectedness and presence with the sacred in our lives. You ask a wonderful question, and the Christ to me is such a it's a complex event, and I think we only see a small part of it when we look at it through our human eyes, and naturally we see the part that is most pertinent and accessible and appropriate to our human nature and to our human evolution on this planet. But what is the Christ in a larger Gaian context? That's what you're asking me. And how do other forms of life, both physical and non-physical, that is in the Davic and the nature realms, how do they experience the Christ? And I, my impression, and I'm not going to hold myself out as an expert here. I'm just going to say that my impression from my experiences is that they do not have the sense of the redemptive aspect that humanity has, the sense that this was a profound, let's call it a kick in the pants evolutionarily, to get us moving again and to help us over a hump. Because they don't experience in their own evolutionary cycles that same inertia or that same challenge that humanity faced. On the other hand, the flip side of that is that humanity has a capacity to take on and embody this Christ principle, this principle of the capacity to to manifest sacredness in how do I want to say this, in a dynamic way, in a I'm going to use a word here that you might not be familiar with, but a nuotinous way, and I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. We have a capacity to embody the Christ in ways that are not present in, as far as I can see, as far as I understand it, in the Davic and Gaian realms. I mean, and this is not at all a sense of better than or less than or worse than or superior to. It's not really comparative. It is, however, different functions, the capacity to perform different functions. So I said I wanted to explain what I meant by nuotony. Nuotony is a term in biology that means that the adult, excuse me, the adult of the species, the infant of the species resembles or is the same physiologically as the adult of the species. So when you see a human baby, you're seeing a complete human being, and when that baby grows to be an adult, it will look the same. It will have a head and torso and 2 arms, 2 legs, and the proportions will be the same, pretty much. So what that means is that the adult human carries into its adulthood much of the flexibility and capacity for change that it had in its infant stage. Now, with many other forms of animal life, this is not true, that the infant or the young child version at that stage has much more flexibility physically, and the body is capable of a wider range of action than when it gets older. And as it gets older, the body structurally and physiologically settles into a particular pattern, and it becomes locked in that pattern. And the adult may even look different from the child stage, and it is unable to have the full range of motion, the full range of activity that it had as a child. So some species have a high degree of nuotony. That is, the adult is very much like that of the child, and some have a very low degree. Okay, that's a very simplified description of that. But what I mean in terms of the Christ and with humanity is that we have an ability to take into ourselves, largely because of our imaginative capability, how flexible and fluid we are as souls. We can take on the Christ in a way that synthesizes and enables us to express that principle, that light, that presence in a multitude of ways, rather than needing to express it along a particular functional track. So a deva may have experienced no loss at all of its connection to the sacred. It is one with the light, has always been, but its ability to express that light is constrained by the particular functions that it is designed to fulfill within the Gaian matrix. But humanity is kind of a jack of all trades, as it were. We're not specialists, we're generalists in that sense. And that means that we can embody the Christ in very profound and imaginative ways that can give, that opens up the opportunity for new forms of Christed manifestation. That is, we can embody the Christ or express the Christ in ways that may never have been expressed before. So, so for me, I mean, the reappearance, like I said, this is a complex image because at one level, obviously, it's tied into the whole Christian tradition of Jesus coming again, and the idea that in some way the Christ was removed from the world and now is coming back, and that has not been true in the Davidic worlds, but in one sense it is true for humanity because we have in a number of ways, through our own choices and our own actions, and I think largely through our own fear, we have undermined our nuotinous capabilities. We have locked ourselves into certain karmic and habitual patterns that undercut our ability to be as full and as how do I want to say this, as multifaceted in our incarnations as we could be. So in that sense, we have a very narrow way of understanding how Christ can or should manifest. And so in a sense, the reappearance might be better called the reintroduction or the gaining once again of our capacity to experience the Christ in the fullness of which we are capable, in the way that we can take it on and express it in service to the world as a kind of jack of all trades. And this is important because in some ways, Gaia looks to humanity, to the souls of humanity, to provide the imagination to open up new pathways of evolution and expression that are in alignment with the wholeness of creation. Therefore, they're part of what the Christ can offer that it cannot do for itself. It can't do all on its own, and it was never intended to do all on its own because that's always been part of humanity's function. And we have and continue in many ways to reject that function. And in that sense, the reappearance of the Christ could be seen as the reappearance of our own fuller, more expanded nature. So that's the best of my understanding at this point, Michael, and I'm sure that it leaves a lot out, and I'm equally sure that there's much more to be understood and discovered, and we'll see how that unfolds, won't we?
Well, thank you, David. As you said, it's complex or it's multifaceted.
Yes,
and
multifaceted.
Taking away from your comments now, what's landed in me is that the reappearance of the Christ is the reclaiming of my Christhood.
Oh, absolutely. That's absolutely right. I mean, think about it. So let's say that Maitreya appears, or Jesus reappears, and there they are. They are, in our celebrity-saturated world, they easily become celebrities of a kind, and people. What is to say that humanity doesn't relate to them in exactly the way we did 2,000 years ago? Unless we have a sense that we are what they are, that whoever the beings are who bring a manifestation of the Christ into public awareness, and I'm sure actually there'll be many because it is multifaceted. The success of that enterprise depends on its ability to resonate and awaken and draw forth something in us that we then embody, not as a follower, but as a fractal, if you wish, as a resonant partner. So like I said, I can embody my Christhood. It's just not on a planetary scale. But embodying it is what gives me, or would give me, the ability, or hopefully will give me the ability, to recognize and resonate with larger octaves, the planetary octaves of that same note as it appears in the years ahead. So yeah, we have to reclaim it for ourselves. It can't be given to us.
Thank you, David. Deeply grateful for your contributions.
And thank you, Michael, for your comment about internalization of qualities. As I was listening, this image of the wave that you, David, described was so vivid. But you said we shouldn't wait, and I had a question maybe. But how is the wave works? Yeah, there's like this atom or molecule of water waits for it to be lifted up. But then when Michael, you said this comment about internalization of qualities, another image came to me, and sorry for liberty showing images on the screen, so I will use it. And another wave came to me, and it's electromagnetic wave. And that's where we shouldn't wait. We just have to attune with that quality. And as you said, David, it's embody the fractal, and then we become part of that wave.
Yes, Alexander, I agree. The image of the wavefront is really there to emphasize that we want to complement the idea of the externalization of the hierarchy as which in many people's minds is a group of individuals, of particular people. Even though we know that the hierarchy is more than that. But still, in the popular imagination, amongst those who believe in these things, there is this image that, well, there are these individuals. There's, Master Ragazzi and Jesus and Moria and Kutumi and so on, all of whom will reappear in the flesh and walk amongst us. But if I think of the wavefront, then it frees my imagination from that kind of articulated, let's say, pixelated view, to recognizing that a wave as a front contains, it's a phenomenon of the water, not of a particular droplet. And we're all part of the water of sacredness. We're all part of that great ocean of being. And so if I think of it as a wavefront, it's much easier for me to acknowledge my participation in it, not as someone simply awaiting it, not as someone looking on it from the outside, not as someone getting caught up in celebrity culture or caught up in the glamour or thinking about great personages walking amongst us. I can then think about it in terms of my participation and what I bring to the process, because I also am that wave.
Thank you. Martin, please unmute yourself.
Yes, hello, David, thank you very much. I have a question that came to me as you were talking about the infant and the adult in the human kingdom and in the animal kingdom. And what occurred to me is that Christ told his disciples and us that you will in no wise enter the kingdom of heaven, or kingdom of souls, unless you are born again. This brings to mind the idea of the infant, physical infant human, and the adult physical human, but the contrast with what Christ is alluding to, which is to be born into the kingdom of souls. So could you talk a bit about that? What was the word? Duotany?
Nuotany, yes.
Between the infant Christ in us, the hope and glory, and the fully realized Christ who is identified with the purpose of Sanat Kumara. Okay?
So when we think of the soul, I know the common image, I believe, for many people is that it's simply a variant of the personality. It's the non-physical side of the personality. And in that sense, it has attributes and characteristics that are very personal in a way that we understand that here in the physical world. My understanding of the soul is of this multifaceted, multi-dimensional, complex mode of being that extends itself in many ways in connection with creation. So when we take incarnation, we in effect narrow that down, or part of us does, part of the soul, deliberately, intentionally in most cases, narrows down to take up a very specific kind of function. And in that, we could say in that sense, it sacrifices some of its nuotany, it sacrifices its flexibility and its multifacetedness. When I'm in touch with my soul and I feel its presence within me, there's this interesting balancing act, because it needs to honor the incarnational matrix that makes up physical life. And yet at the same time, it brings into that life the kind of freedom, I think freedom is a very good word here, and capacity for wholeness and connectedness that is indicative of the soul itself, always within in a manner that's appropriate to the integrity and coherency of the physical life. Because I mean, it's not the soul's intent to destroy the incarnation. It's the soul's intent to be part of the physical world in a way that enables it to contribute the light that it has. And for that, an incarnation that's been destroyed or rendered incoherent, either physically or psychologically, isn't of great use. So a balance has to be struck, and a very simple way of putting that is to say it's the balance between the infinite and the finite. Because while the soul is itself a finite being, in the grand scheme of things, it's relatively or comparatively infinite compared to the finiteness of a human incarnational state. Actually, I'm not at this point. I'm not sure that I'm answering your question. Let me put it this way. Let me say that what I've experienced in my own life, and it has shaped how I approach things and how I work. And this may be very different from how you or others have experienced it, but what I've experienced is the respect and the joy and the care that the soul has for its human expression, that we genuinely are beloved, and we are genuinely honored in the same way that I honor my hands or my feet for what they enable me to do. I I love the fact that my hand enables me to pick things up, and it enables me to type, and it enables me to draw, and all the things that I can do with my hands. And so I love my hands, and I don't see them as being a lesser part of me or just a fragment. They're part of the wholeness of who I am, and they enable me to do certain things. My hands don't allow me to walk very well, and I would hate to have to walk on my hands everywhere. So my feet are really good for that. So there are certain things that my incarnate life offers my soul, which is important to the soul, and for which the soul has love and respect and honor and appreciation. And there are other things that my incarnate life cannot offer and is not designed to offer. And so I don't try to do those other things within my incarnate system as a physical human being. But I may try to do them if I move into the consciousness of the soul. So that sounds very abstract, I know, and I'm not just sure how to put it another way. But when I think of the glory of the Christ, that love, I experience that as a profound love. But and for me, this is important. It's not just the love of, say, a father for children, or a love of a greater for a lesser, because with that love comes appreciation and honor for what is being loved, and a how do I want to say that? A desire for it to be fulfilled as what it is intended to be. So the Christ doesn't try to change me into something else as much as it tries to enable me to be fully all that I can be, as both as a human being, as an incarnate individual, but also as a soul, because the Christ is a principle that nourishes the soul as much as it nourishes the physical side of me. I realize this, I'm not sure I've addressed your question, actually, because
That's fine. Thank you very much. It was very helpful.
Okay, here we are at one end of an electronic communication, and I try to reach out and touch you folks so that we can share a field together, but I'm not sure I'm always successful.
You touched my soul.
Good. All right. Well done then.
Thank you very much.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you.
I really appreciate, somehow it stuck with me, what you said about exploring the areas of our ignorance. And I think it's the beauty of this collective exploration when we ask the question and we together try to perceive in the moment, receiving that impression of what that is.
Yes. Well, ignorance is certainly there for us to acknowledge and explore, isn't it?
And that's the beauty of the group. And I've been taking notes of what you said. And for me, the most resonant thing what you said, it's about partnering with life around me as a way for externalization. And yeah, where I'm ignorant, you are wise, and where we ignorant, somebody else is wise, and that's together we can manifest the life in much more expressive way. Supplementing
that is so
each other.
Yeah, that is so true, Alexander. I'm with you 100% on that one.
There were several comments that I will posting in the chat. I want to read one. This is from Margot. This almost feels heretical to share. However, the past few days, when I say the Great Invocation, I want to play what if. What if light is descending on Earth? It is. What if love is streaming forth into the hearts of humanity? It is. What if purpose is guiding the little wheels of humanity? It is. What if the plan of love and light and power is working out and the door where evil dwells is sealed? What if part of our responsibility is to work with this thought form or something even newer as part of co-creation? Nervous to share this.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know, I'd like to say, just this is just my personal thought. It comes out of some experience, but again, it's what I call a field note. You know, DK wrote what he did and said what he did for a unique period of time, 100 years ago, and he gave what would be very helpful and needed then. And it's not that it's no longer helpful or needed, because it is, but if it is truth, then it grows. It evolves and changes as we evolve and change. And so I think it's wonderful to explore how these invocations and other tools that we use evolve with us, and what they have to say now and how they might be said differently that complement or may replace, but certainly may complement what was said 100 years ago or so. So yeah, tell Margot, I think that's wonderful, and I appreciate what she said there.
I'm trying to run through more comments that's been shared, and I realized that we have come very close in time to what we have allocated for this meeting. So, David, maybe we could go together into meditation and see what is there for us to download together.
Okay. So, Alexander, then I'll close with a short meditation.
Thank you.
Let's build upon the imagery that we've explored in this talk. So let us imagine ourselves lying on the beach. It's a pleasant place to be. The sand is warm, the sun is bright and high above us. The day is beautiful. And looking out, we see a wave coming. A wave is moving through the ocean towards the shore. And as it comes, we stand up on the beach, each of us in our own place, and we feel the call of the water. We feel that ancient ocean that is always within us, circulating through our veins and arteries. Our very blood that carries in its chemistry the primeval sea from which life arose. And that internal ocean within us hears the call of the ocean that is outside us. And we recognize we are the same. Just as the life within us, held within our incarnate self, bounded, shaped, formed by our human life, knows that it is also part of the primal life, the one life from which all have arisen. In our imagination, we hear the call of the ocean, and we leave the sandy beach and rush out over the surf and into the water. And when the wave rolls over us, we are lifted up by it and held by it and become one with it. And so when the wave of sacredness of the one life rolls through our individualities, the ancient life within us, the soul life within us, recognizes it and knows we are one with it, and we are uplifted and carried forth and become part of it, part of its presence to bring blessing to our world. May we be the wave front together, and may the externalization live in us. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Alexander. And it's always
Thank
a
you.
blessing to be with you.
Thank you, David. It's difficult to shift back into the words out of this ocean of divinity. As I said, there are more comments and questions. Thanks everyone for putting your thoughts and your heart and your expressed through the words. We have a few minutes. I'm not sure, David, if you want to just look through any comments in this chat and anything you would like to comment on that. Otherwise, we can together silently read those comments.
So there's one comment from Joe asking me to spell Nooteny. It's N-O-O-T-E-N-Y. I should probably look that up to be sure, but that's how I remember it. I haven't used it for a long time. And let's see. You know, I appreciate all the comments, and they are wonderful comments from each of you. They're not really questions, they're just your wonderful contributions to the thoughts that we've all been sharing here. And so I very much appreciate that. And I should probably start because I can feel my voice beginning to go. So.
Yeah, and I was again, I want to express the gratitude, David, and it's joy to be together in the circle, and every time you join, it's special blessings.
Thank you, Alexander, and it's a blessing for me. And I want to wish everybody the happiest, most joyous, safest, and wondrous new year.
Thank you, and Happy New Year to you and everyone.
Thank you, my friend.
Tomorrow is the last day of the full moon, 5 days day period full moon, and I want to invite you to join a wonderful program that Tuya and Michael Robbins organize every year as New Year Vigil. It's a 25 hours program. Somehow they managed to find an extra hour to the wave of the new year. And so if you're not receiving their invitations, you can get in touch with us and we will forward it to you. But yeah, it's a wonderful way to end the year, connecting with different time zones, New Year, as a wave goes through the planet, across the planet. Thank you. And another announcement I want to share is that as we continue meditating with the cycle of meditation for the common good in the cycle of Capricorn, we invite you to reflect together with us on the topic of truth. How do we relate to what is true in this turbulent time of disinformation? And the meditation for the common good, as always, will happen the webinar and the new moon. This time it will be January 15th. But as we prepare for this time together and the new moon, we invite you to reflect on this topic daily, and together as a group we could hold this theme in our group mind. How we work, how we become a group observer, distinguishing what is truth. Thank you a lot and Happy New Year.